A Toronto rapper who was on trial for murder is set free today. We'll have more on the top 5 case coming up from the courthouse tonight.
And taxi theft. Toronto police say that a woman right here, she stole a cab in the city's downtown core. This happened over the weekend. We're going to show you the entire video.
And nearly 500 people have been killed and almost 1,200 injured in Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon. It's the deadliest day in that country in almost 2 decades.
And sources tell TSN that the Toronto Raptors are planning to retire Vince Carter's jersey next month. We're going to have reaction from Scotiabank Arena.
You're watching Live at 5.
Good evening. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Lena Latifat. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hassan Ali is a free man this evening after the charges against the Toronto rapper, known as Top 5, were stayed on the first day of his murder trial.
Right now, let's go live to CP24's Beatrice Vaisman, who continues our live coverage at the University Avenue Courthouse. Ali's lawyer said that the case against his client amounted to, quote, rap on trial. Beatrice?
Yeah, I mean, the reason behind that, Bakari, is because really the crux of the Crown's case rested on lyrics, rap videos, YouTube videos, social media posts in which Hassan Ali, known in the underground rap world as Top 5, talked about violence, talked about gang culture, talked about in one of his lyrics specifically, and this is really was at the heart of the Crown's case. The lyric was, when I was 18, I bought a gun, 22 when I shot your son. And so when it came down to it, the judge that was overseeing this case ruled that all of that evidence, the social media posts, the lyrics, the music videos, was inadmissible as evidence in his murder trial. And so the Crown conceded that without that evidence, the case essentially collapsed, that there wasn't a probable case for prosecution. And so today, the Crown lawyer in charge of this case, Rose, instead she's asked the registrar to stay the charges, which means essentially Hassan Ali, after 3 years in custody, he's a free man. And he talked to us outside of the courthouse earlier this morning, and here's what he said.
An innocent man just came home, right? 3 years the journey with the best lawyer, Gary Grill. Like I always do, I let him do the talking. You know what I'm saying?
But this applies to you, so you must have some feelings to share about this journey.
La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There's no power, no might except by God.
How does it feel to be stepping out after being in custody for that long?
I feel like Shohei Ohtani. I feel like a baseball player, superstar. You know what I mean? Yeah, listen, man. Pedro home. Pedro activated. Free flipper, free 100, free century. Long live Jason.
Hassan Ali repeatedly said that he was an innocent man, that the innocent man is now free after 3 years in custody. The photograph on your screen a moment ago is that of the man, 20-year-old man who was tragically killed back in January 2021 in this kind of gang rival turf war that was happening. 20-year-old Hashim Omar Hashi, an accounting student, someone that police say had no ties to criminal activity or gang violence or any gangs whatsoever, was coming home after having dinner with friends. He was pulling into his underground parking garage at 40 Falstaff Avenue when he was shot and killed. Homicide detectives at the time said they would believe this was a case of mistaken identity, and investigators allege that Hassan Ali was the mastermind behind this murder. Not that he pulled the trigger, but that he orchestrated it and ordered it as revenge for his brother's homicide in 2017. Today, Hassan Ali's lawyer talked about rap being on trial, specifically what you mentioned, Bakari, and how his lyrics played into the Crown's case. Here's what he said.
I think the evidence against Hassan was entirely circumstantial. I think, as Justice Schreck noted in his pretrial ruling, that the case against him was not strong at all. It was very, very weak, in my opinion, and I think this is the correct decision to release Mr. Ali right now.
Hassan Ali, during his press conference or scrum with us this morning, repeatedly shouted out to Drake, saying tonight he was looking forward to hanging out with the rap superstar. And late this afternoon, Bakari and Lena, Hassan Ali posting to Instagram, thanking Drake for paying his legal fees and for helping him out. So again, 3 years after he was taken into custody of being accused in this 2021 murder, Hassan Ali is a free man. Back to you.
All right, that's an interesting development. Beatrice Faisman live outside the University Courthouse tonight. Thank you, Beatrice. Well, police are trying to identify a woman they say stole a taxi cab downtown over the weekend.
For this story, we turn to CP24's Melissa Duggan, who's outside of Toronto Police Headquarters on College Street. With the latest in this investigation, Melissa, is like, you got to see the video to believe it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Kind of an unusual circumstance here. It's not unusual that we're talking about car theft and that sort of thing, but a taxi cab involved and kind of the scenario that played out, not something that we're used to hearing. So it happened in the city's downtown, as you mentioned, and Toronto police are releasing images of the woman that they are looking for in this circumstance. I'm going to have you have a look at who it is that they're looking for. Now, this situation, it happened at Lakeshore West and Bay. It was actually on Saturday, September 7th at about 12:45 a.m. The cab driver was in his vehicle. He stopped the car. He got out, but he left the keys in the ignition and the car doors unlocked. But he only popped out for a moment just to toss out some garbage, went to turn back to get back to his car. But that's when he saw it headed southbound. Someone had gotten into his vehicle and was driving away with it. Now police are looking for this woman who was involved. We see her images there. Here's what else police are telling me.
So it's one of those things where, crime will happen if the opportunity, presents itself. So, we want the public to know, like, if you are parking your vehicle, make sure the doors are locked, right? If you're going to leave your car running, we don't know if the vehicle is running in this case, but do not leave it unattended, right? It's also, the onus is on you as well, keeping your vehicle safe. So these circumstances can happen if you give someone an opportunity.
Police also advising everyone to take out their keys of the car, lock up those doors when you pop out. So again, this woman that they're looking for, the only description that we're getting from police, except for, of course, the photos that they're sharing, is saying that she has shoulder-length wavy hair. If you have seen this woman, you are encouraged to reach out to Toronto Police. Back to you.
CP24's Melissa Duggan at TPS headquarters. Thanks a lot. Well, police have charged a man for allegedly sexually assaulting women that were looking for a job. Yeah,
70-year-old Jacob Nimo, a Woodbridge man, has been charged with 3 counts of sexual assault. Police allege on September 5th, multiple women attended a business in the Keele Street and Steeles Avenue West area for a job posting. 2 women were asked to return at another time when both women were sexually assaulted. Investigators believe there may be more alleged victims.
All right, it's 5:07, 21 degrees, feeling like 26. It's time to check on the commute with a familiar face, but not at this hour. CP24's traffic specialist, Lisa Morales. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Bakari. Hey, Lena. So great to be on with you guys this afternoon. And we have some issues to show you right now for the drive out of Burlington. If you normally use the QEW Toronto bound, this is a look heading up the Burlington Skyway. And look at this, TV magic. Problem is literally clearing as we speak. This was a stall, so there goes MTO. They were in the right lane, but you can also see the delays on approach if you're heading out that way. South 427, really, really busy. South of Derry Rexdale onto the 401. There was some maintenance on the West 401 near the 410. It's gone, but definitely some delays. This is the West 401 ramp to the 412. If you're planning travels out of Durham, ramp is still accessible, but you can see a lot of emergency crews on scene. And then look at the drive in Milton, West 401, heading towards Highway 25. You can see the right lane in the distance there blocked, and that is a stalled tractor trailer.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
Thanks, Lisa. It's 5:08, 21 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Well, a new report claims that more than $1.5 billion in public money was spent on private nurses in Canada last year. We're going to take a closer look next. We're hearing from Premier Doug Ford for the first time since some TDSB students, they were on a field trip. They ended up taking part in a protest.
The Premier was asked about this today. Here's how he responded.
Indoctrinate our kids. They should be in the classroom learning about reading, writing, spelling, arithmetic, the whole shebang. But instead, the TDSB and these teachers want to bring them down to a rally, a Palestinian rally, and it's ridiculous. I've said for years, and I don't want to paint a broad brush on the teachers, because it's not all the teachers. It's a small minority of teachers.
Yeah, the TDSB says an undisclosed number of students attended the Grassy Narrows River Run last Wednesday, a march organized to highlight the mercury contamination within the First Nation. The board says the event was intended as an educational experience, but videos on social media show some students taking part in the march and repeating a pro-Palestinian slogan. The TDSB says it'll be reviewing its field trip policies.
A new report claims that more than $1.5 billion in public money was spent on private nurses in Canada. This was last year.
Yeah, let's bring in CP24's Andrew Brennan for a closer look at this tonight. Andrew.
Yeah, looking back to the last fiscal year that we have data available for, and according to the author of this study, it's about what's publicly available, so it's in their mind a tip of the iceberg situation. We're talking about $1.5 billion of traceable money in the supposedly public healthcare system going towards private for-profit nursing, and normally through agencies that are trying to fill the gaps in healthcare networks to be able to have adequate care for the patients in hospitals and long-term care facilities and otherwise. And that $1.5 billion is a six-fold increase in just 3 years. The number that we had from earlier on in the pandemic, 2020 to 2021, that fiscal year was $247 million and a little bit of change. But that is a small change there compared to, again, $1.5 billion. We did hear from the lead researcher in this study saying that, again, this is a tip of the iceberg situation.
The use of agencies is really disrupting the system and the healthcare teams. You know, the use of short-term contracts and the frequent turnover of staff affects, the continuity of care, team morale, and unit culture of having, constantly different team members that you're working with. So that's being lost because some contracts are as short as 4 weeks. Others can be a bit longer, up to 2 years. But the average based on this data really was around 4 weeks to 3 months, 4 months.
Now, we did reach out to the Minister of Health's office, Sylvia Jones's office, telling us, in part, our government does not have any contracts with healthcare worker agencies, including nursing and PSW agencies. Hospitals, according to this statement, have always had the tool to use agency nurses, including under the former Liberal government. In fact, saying that the proportion of agency nurses has decreased from about 3.8% in 2017 to under 3% for fiscal year 22-23, and that the total number of hours worked by agency nurses in Ontario's hospitals remains under 2% of total hours worked in hospitals. So taking that at face value, that would mean that a lot of these private for-profit nursing agencies are filling much of the gaps in the long-term care facilities. And Lena Bakari, just looking at the takeaways from this survey here, the biggest thing that the lead author is saying is that the government must immediately begin trying to phase out these nursing agencies for the good of the healthcare system.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. Well, a charter challenge began today of the Ontario law that allows hospitals to place discharged patients into long-term care homes, not of their choosing.
And the law was implemented in 2022 in a move by the province to free up hospital beds. Those who refuse to move face fines of up to $400 a day. This is under Bill 7. Well, patients in southern Ontario can be sent to homes up to 70 kilometers away, and those in the north can be moved 150 kilometers away. Advocacy groups argue that the law is in violation of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
It's ageist, it's age discrimination, it's targeted particularly at what they call alternate level of care patients, who are virtually all of them elderly, to override their right to informed consent and force them out of hospital into long-term care homes where they don't want to be. And that's the last move of their life for many of them. It's where they're going to die.
So many families are in the same position that I'm in, and they're going through grief, shock, and being mad at this whole system, that feeling like they had no control. They were just pushed through a system, and the hospitals were just happy to get rid of them. And that's how I think there's so many families out there that are going through exactly what I did, but they don't have a voice. They just have to sit back and say we've lost them and grieve like I did.
Premier Doug Ford defended the provincial policy when asked about the court challenge today.
Long-term care is a home. A hospital is a hospital. And they're great at doing the stuff they're doing, but it's the worst place in the world to drop off an elderly person and stick him in a room at the hospital. Bring him to a real home, a long-term care home, and it frees up the acute care beds for people that really, really need them.
Well, a spokesperson for Ontario Health Minister Sylvia Jones issued a statement. It reads, quote, "Let's be clear about what Bill 7 does. Bill 7 ensures Ontarians are receiving the care they need in a setting that's right for them and brings Ontario in line with several other provinces that have had similar policies in place for decades. No patients are added without their consent. All placement in a non-preferred home is a temporary measure until a spot in a preferred home becomes available."
And one key item in the challenge will be whether Bill 7 fulfilled its purpose by improving the flow of patients. And that, of course, is yet to be determined.
It's 5:17, 21 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, the latest on Israeli airstrikes have killed hundreds in Lebanon as Middle East tensions rise even higher. Stay with us. A sharp escalation in tensions in the Middle East after Israel launched hundreds of airstrikes in southern and eastern Lebanon today. Nearly 500 people are reported to have been killed and more than 1,000 wounded in the deadliest day in that country in nearly 2 decades.
And for more on this, we turn live to CP24's Phil Perkins, who joins us in studio. Phil.
But Carolina, that's right. That death toll had gone up by at least 100. For most of the day, we were saying at least 350 plus people have been killed in these IDF airstrikes in southern and eastern Lebanon today. That number, according to the Associated Press, increased to 450. At this point, we're not sure how many of those killed are combatants with Hezbollah, because it is not a defined army, or how many of these who are killed are also citizens, because as we understand, according to the IDF, a lot of the combatants with Hezbollah are within the community. It is a massive part, it's woven in the fabric in Lebanon. And so as of now, according to the AP, at least 490 people are killed, at least 1,200 injured. The IDF said that they targeted 1,300 weapons sites with Hezbollah, claiming that tens of thousands of their arsenal were destroyed. We're hearing from the Lebanese health ministers saying that hospitals, medical centers, and ambulances were also hit. At the same time, Israel saying they sent out upwards to 80,000 messages for people living in this part of the country. Again, some of these villages about 15 minutes in a vehicle just south of the capital of Beirut, but 80,000 messages sent to the people living there telling them to get out and try to avoid, being a casualty in these hundreds of missile strikes. Now, we heard from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu giving a warning to the Lebanese people, and we're also going to hear from Robert Riggs. He's a Middle East geopolitical risk consultant, and he talked about what could be at stake here if Israel were to continue this way and focusing its attention on Hezbollah. Here's what they had to say.
A message for the people of Lebanon. Israel's war is not with you. It's with Hezbollah. Starting this morning, the IDF has warned you to get out of harm's way. I urge you, take this warning seriously. Don't let Hezbollah endanger your lives and the lives of your loved ones. Don't let Hezbollah endanger Lebanon.
Netanyahu said he wants to change the security structure of the North and the balance of power. And that requires, if he wants to carry that out, that would require, really debilitating Hezbollah, which is the most well-armed and experienced and dangerous non-state militant group in the world, I think we can say. We're talking about a group that has estimated to be maybe 150,000 rockets, unmanned drones.
And of course, this is a sharp escalation from last week's I guess we can say procedure that the IDF orchestrated, the explosion of multiple pagers that were used by Hezbollah operatives, killing at least 37 people. Israel says they're going to continue to fight Hezbollah until they move their forces further away from their southern border, so that the Israelis who have been living close to the border between Lebanon and Israel can go back to their homes. Back to you guys.
All right. Phil Perkins live in studio. Thanks so much, Phil. It's 5:23, 21 degrees. This is Live at 5.
And the Raptors are getting ready to honor the first player to ever score a basket at Scotiabank Arena. We're going to have more on this next with Kayla Williams. For the first time in club history, the Raptors are going to retire a player's number.
Yeah, TSN has learned the team will honor Vince Carter this season. For all the details on this story, let's go live to CP24's Kayla Williams outside Scotiabank Arena. I mean, this is so well deserved. This man's done so much for Canadian basketball, Kayla.
Absolutely, Lena and Bakari. And when you think about this, this has been years in the making, but it is finally official that the Raptors will be honoring Vince Carter by retiring his iconic number 15 jersey up in the rafters at Scotiabank Arena. And as you alluded to just before the commercial break, he was the first player to ever score a bucket, which at the time, of course, was Air Canada Centre. But when you look back at the legacy of the career span of Vince Carter in Toronto, 7 seasons out of his 22 long career span in the NBA, and arguably the most iconic pit stop on his career was in Toronto. What he did for the city, but not only that, what he did for Canadian basketball as a whole. And here in the streets of downtown Toronto this afternoon, I had a chance to speak with folks, get their reaction to the news that number 15 is going up in the rafters.
Glad they're doing it. I think Kyle Lowry next, DeRozan next, and then maybe Kawhi, maybe Chris Bosh.
He's a slam dunk champion. You know, when you think of the Toronto Raptors, you think of Vince Carter, and the only other people beside that, as we talked about, is Chris Bosh and Kyle Lowry. So Vince Carter, respectfully, is the first one because he is the best one.
The franchise isn't what it is without Vince Carter. You got to think Air Canada, the name on the arena, that's his nickname, Vinsanity. Like, it's a thing because of him and what he did on and off the court. So yeah, he deserves everything he gets right now.
Yeah, a lot of people remember Vinsanity, half man, half amazing, Air Canada. The list goes on and on and on. And of course, everyone remembers him for his iconic dunking. But he was also and is the 4th leading scorer in Raptors history of all time with just over 9,400 points. So the ceremony will go down on Saturday, November 2nd. That's when the Raptors will be taking on the Sacramento Kings, which, by the way, is another team that Vince also played for. And it's also the current team of another Raptor great in DeMar DeRozan. We'll send it back inside to you.
All right, Kayla Williams live outside Scotiabank Arena. Thanks so much, Kayla. It is 5:28, 21 degrees. This is Live at 5.
And a Toronto rapper who was on trial for murder has been set free. This is after a judge stayed all charges against Hassan Ali, known as Top 5. We're going to tell you why next. A Toronto rapper who was on trial for murder is set free today. We're going to have more on the Top 5 case coming up.
Well, taxi theft. Toronto police say a woman stole a cab in the city's downtown core, and they have video to show you tonight.
Nearly 500 people have been killed and 1,200 injured in Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon. It's the deadliest day in that country in almost 2 decades.
And sources tell TSN that the Toronto Raptors, they're planning to retire Vince Carter's jersey next month. We'll have reaction from Scotiabank Arena. That's coming up with Kayla Williams.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us here on Live at 5. I'm Lena Latafat.
And I'm Bakari Savage. So police are trying to identify a woman they say stole a taxi cab. This happened downtown.
Yeah, let's go live now to CP24's Melissa Duggan outside Toronto Police headquarters on College Street for the latest on this investigation. Melissa.
Yeah, Lena, it took just a moment for this cab to be stolen. Just to give you an idea of the situation here, the cab driver was driving through the city. It was about 12:45 Saturday, September 7th in the downtown core near Bay and Lakeshore West. He stopped his vehicle, left the keys in the ignition, went out of the vehicle, doors unlocked just to drop off some garbage in the trash bin, turned around and saw his vehicle taken off southbound down Bay Street. Now police are releasing some video showing the suspect, they say, jumped into that vehicle and made away with it. When the cab driver saw this happen, he called police. They went to the scene. They were able to eventually recover this vehicle, but they are still looking for the suspect involved. Police calling this a crime of opportunity. And here's what else they're telling us.
Anyone's at risk. I mean, in this case, it was a taxi cab driver, and of course, that's his livelihood. And of course, people need to realize that. I mean, his vehicle's probably damaged, and you know, he may have some, you know, hesitations in going out, not knowing what kind of people are going to be jumping into his car.
I should mention the cab driver here not injured in this circumstance whatsoever. But anyone who does recognize this woman that police say has shoulder-length, wavy hair, you're being asked to reach out to Crime Stoppers, to police, let them know, because they are certainly hoping to track this woman down. Back to you.
All right, CP24's Melissa Duggan outside of TPS headquarters. Thanks a lot, Melissa. Well, Hassan Ali is a free man tonight. This is after the charges against the Toronto rapper known as Top 5. They were stayed during what was supposed to be the first day of his murder trial.
Yeah, let's go live now to CP24's Beatrice Vaisman at the University Avenue Courthouse with the very latest. And there is a Drake connection here, Beatrice.
There is. We know that Top 5 has been a supporter of Drake for many years, posting about it on social media, even while he was in police custody. Lena and Bakari, in connection to this 2021 homicide tonight, a social media account linked to Top 5 posting a photo thanking Drake for helping him pay for his legal bills. He thanked Drake repeatedly when he was talking to reporters as well, saying that Drake helped him out big time. This was a case that we've been now following very closely, and a bombshell happened today as the Crown's case completely collapsed after the judge found on Thursday, ruled actually, not found, the judge ruled that evidence related to this case that were specific to Top 5's social media footprint, his videos, his rap lyrics, his YouTube videos, that they wouldn't actually be admissible in court as part of this case because they were too prejudicial. And so once the judge made that determination, the Crown essentially didn't have a case, conceding that there was no probability of conviction. And so that's why the Crown asked the registrar today to stay the charges. It essentially gives the Crown and homicide detectives 1 year to bring this charge back and this case back if they desire to. But there's a lyric specifically that the Crown was hinging its case on in a rap video released by rapper Top 5, real name Hassan Ali, while he was in custody at the jail out in Milton. In that video, he rapped 18 when I bought a gun, 22 when I shot your son. And so as Top 5 was leaving the courthouse today, I asked him specifically about that lyric. Here's what he said.
Walking like I talk it. Long live Jason!
Mr. Ali, what did you mean by when I was 18, I bought a gun, 22, shot your son?
It's all fake, cap.
If you're not familiar with gang terminology, a cap means lies. It's essentially saying that though that lyric was a lie. And that's something that his lawyer echoed as well, Lena and Bakari, that these kinds of lyrics are part of the persona of rappers who pretend to be the biggest, baddest gangsters. This was a situation that unfolded, the homicide, back in January 2021. A 20-year-old man named Hashim Omar Hashi, an accounting student who police say had zero ties to criminal activity or gang violence whatsoever, was coming home. He was shot dead outside of his apartment on Falstaff Avenue in rival gang territory because the court documents that we obtained suggest that the allegation was that Hassan Ali, Top 5, was part of the Go Get 'Em gang. And so the victim was in gang territory, and that police alleging, along with the Crown, that Hassan Ali was the mastermind behind this homicide, orchestrating it and ordering it as revenge for his brother's shooting death back in 2017. But as for the lyrics and the evidence that police had against his client, here's what the defense lawyer, Gary Grill, had to say.
The way that Mr. Ali was charged in the first place was as a result of his lyrics. It was a result of the videos that he was putting out there. It's a result of his medium as a drill rap artist that attracted the attention of the police. Drillers, and I think people have to understand that part of Rap on Trial, and I'm sure people should learn about what Rap on Trial is about using the persona of an artist in addition to their songs and assume that it's all true and prosecute them on that basis.
And so repeatedly, as he was talking to us, Hassan Ali, or Top 5, said he was an innocent man. He refuted questions about being part of a gang. And here we are 3 years after he was taken into custody. Hassan Ali, now a free man. Back to you.
And of course, we have to remember the family of the victims still grieving and looking for answers. That's so important to note. Beatrice Faisman live outside the courthouse tonight. Thank you, Beatrice. Time now is 5:37, 21 degrees out there, feeling more like 29. Let's get a check on the evening commute with CP24's traffic specialist, Lisa Morales, tonight. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Lena. And a busy one for sure. We've been talking a lot of volume, which is not a bad thing. It just means we don't have as many problems to talk about. So again, not a terrible news, but we are still dealing with a stalled tractor trailer. This is westbound 401 if you're traveling into Milton. So West 401, your Highway 25, you can see a heavy tow, MTO. They're in the right lane dealing with a stalled tractor trailer. It is definitely sluggish on approach. Let me take you through sections of the 401, otherwise across the GTA. And again, just a very busy one. The Gardner into downtown, check it out, really slow. From Islington in sections all the way out past the Jameson stretch. QEW through parts of Mississauga, also into Burlington, busy. The North 410 into Brampton has been slow as well, 407 up to Queen, but no live lane issues.
All right, thanks a lot, Lisa. It's Bakari. It's okay. Well, Premier Doug Ford is responding to critics of his government's plan to restrict municipalities from installing new bike lanes.
I know the city like the back of my hand. You go down on Hospital Row, University Avenue, paramedics are trying to get someone to the hospital as quickly as possible. They take out a lane of traffic, put bike lanes in there. It's cut down to one. It's jammed like crazy. Go on Bloor Street that they've disrupted all the businesses there. There's a petition just in Etobicoke for 50,000 people signing to get rid of these bike lanes. You might see 4 or 5 bikes as you see traffic lined up all the way down the road for kilometers and kilometers.
Well, the restrictions would mean no new bike lanes that would require the removal of a lane of traffic to be installed. Well, it comes ahead of the introduction of a gridlock reduction bill that's expected to be tabled this fall. Toronto has significantly expanded its bike lane infrastructure in recent years and currently has a 3-year plan to deliver 100 kilometers of new or significantly upgraded bikeways by 2027.
Well, Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow, she spoke to reporters this afternoon about the city's latest congestion report and the steps being taken to ease gridlock.
Speeding up the construction, coordinating the service, and shorten the road closure, enforce the law so that people that are breaking it will be fined, and that would really deal with congestion. And the second piece that's very important is a serious investment in public transit. And we are on track to have a lot more people taking public transit as we increase the service, but keep the fares as it is without any increase.
According to the Toronto Region Board of Trade, the average Toronto driver lost 118 hours due to congestion in 2022, costing the GTA about $11 billion in lost productivity. Wow.
A subway service will end early on a portion of Line 2 this week. Trains will stop running between Victoria Park and Kennedy stations at 11 o'clock each night through Thursday so that crews can do track work. Shuttle buses will run along the stretch.
It's 5:40, 21 degrees. This is Live at 5.
A new report claims more than $1.5 billion in public money was spent on private nurses in Canada last year. We're going to take a closer look next.
Well, a new report claims more than $1.5 billion in public money was spent on private nurses in Canada last year.
Okay, crunching the numbers and with a closer look at the entire story. We turn to CP24's Andrew Brennan. Andrew.
And what makes this so alarming to the lead author in this study, Bakari and Lena, is the fact that this is a 6-fold increase in the span of less than 3 years. Go back to the fiscal year for 2020, 2021. In the midst of a pandemic, when we knew that we also had so many more of these first responders and also the heroes, as we were talking about them at the time, being inside COVID wards. We had these private nurse agencies that were filling the gaps as more and more nurses were going off sick. And even then, in that time frame, in that inescapable time that was the early days of the pandemic, it was $249, give or take, million that was spent on private nurses. Now you take that and you not even quintuple it, multiply by 6. That's where we're at now. Now, according to the Federation of Nurses, or at least one of them in Canada, they're saying this is an alarming trend and part of a growing and larger problem.
We know that a lot of nurses left jobs in the public sector, in emergency rooms, in intensive care, and that the numbers I'm talking about are in Ontario, and left and went to the agency just to be rehired by their hospital. We know our long-term care sector is really crippled and need agency nurses just to stay their door open. So we will have a discussion with all health ministers, and we're trying not to point the finger. We're just saying we need to have a plan to phase them out and create great jobs in all our communities.
Now, we did hear from the office of the Health Minister, Sylvia Jones. This statement is a portion of it, saying in part, our government does not have any contracts with healthcare worker agencies, including nursing and PSW agencies. Hospitals, they say, have always had the tool to use agency nurses, including under the former Liberal government. In fact, this statement says the proportion of agency nurses has decreased from 3.8% in 2017 to under 3% for fiscal 22-23. The total number of hours worked by agency nurses in Ontario's hospitals remains under 2% of total hours worked in hospitals. Now, as we send it back to the desk, one last thing that came from the lead author in this study is so much of the available data, or actually so much of the data on public health care in our country, Lena Bakari, is not actually publicly available. They say this $1.5 billion figure is probably a lot larger in real terms. I'll send it back to you both.
All right, Andrew Brennan live in studio tonight. Thanks, Andrew. It is now 5:45, 21 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
Coming up, the latest on the Israeli airstrikes, which have killed hundreds in Lebanon as Middle East tensions rise even higher. Sharp escalation in Middle East tensions. This is after Israel launched hundreds of airstrikes in southern and eastern Lebanon.
And nearly 500 people are reported to have been killed and more than 1,000 wounded in the deadliest day in that country in nearly 2 decades. Let's get all the developments from CP24's Phil Perkins. Lots to talk about here, Phil, and lots of concern about a wider regional conflict.
Yeah, and according to some people we've already spoken with here live on CP24, we've already reached that point where the focus might be drifting away from Hamas and the Gaza Strip and now with southern and eastern Lebanon. Now, again, just to give you an update on the death toll here, this is just an estimate right now from the Associated Press. They're reporting at least 490 people are dead, 1,200 injured at this point. This is the deadliest Israeli strike on Lebanon since the 2006 war. We understand via Hamas, they're reporting that one of their field commanders was killed. They were stationed in southern Lebanon. We also understand that the IDF say that they have hit at least 1,300 weapon sites, destroying tens of thousands of weapon arsenals that were being held by Hezbollah. And on the flip side, the Lebanese health minister is reporting that not only were weapon sites hit, but also hospitals, medical centers, and ambulances were hit as well. And while we're understanding about the casualties, we also know that tens of thousands of people are fleeing right now towards the capital, Beirut. For some of these villages in southern Lebanon, it's about a 15-minute drive, but we understand that highways are jam-packed with people leaving, and this could be due to the nearly 80,000 messages that the IDF sent out to people living in the area to vacate the premises. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that they don't want a war, they just want to get rid of the threat of Hezbollah. Now, we've heard from Mark Miller, a spokesperson with the U.S. Department of State, and they want a de-escalation and they want a diplomatic end to this.
I will say that our overall policy remains consistent, which is we do want to see a diplomatic resolution to the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. We want to see one that allows the tens of thousands of Israelis who've been displaced from their homes and the tens of thousands of Lebanese who have been displaced from their homes to be able to return home, and that's what we are continuing to pursue.
And again, this missile strike is another escalation of what we saw last week, where up to 37 people killed, some Hezbollah operatives, when Israel orchestrated the explosions of multiple pagers used by Hezbollah operatives. Again, 37 people killed there, at least 490 killed in this specific strike this morning. Back to you.
All right, Phil Perkins live in studio tonight. Thank you, Phil. It's 5:51, 21 degrees. This is Live at 5.
And coming up, we're going to talk to Canadian tennis star Bianca Andreescu about a new campaign pushing for gender equity.
Well, welcome back. Tennis Canada has launched a new campaign to push for gender equity now.
And for more on this, we're joined by tennis star Bianca Andreescu, WTA player, 2019 U.S. Open champion. Bianca, thank you very much for taking time to speak with us. Let's talk about the prize money disparity between men and women. Why this push now? And, talk about that campaign because, look, the ticket prices are the same. You have the people filling the stadium for you as well.
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling for sure. I do believe that this is happening now because we're getting closer to that equality becoming a reality. In partnership with National Bank and the WTA, Tennis Canada will be able to offer equal prize money at the NBO from 2027, which is incredible. And there's a clear pathway to get there, which is obviously an easier path. And it's also Gender Equality Week in Canada, so we are celebrating all the amazing women we have in our sport by embracing the color purple in this new campaign.
Look, Bianca, it's great to see you, and I'm sure it's going to mean so much to so many to see you talking about this, featured in this campaign. And you've talked about icons like Billie Jean King, for example, how she's really, paved the way for younger athletes like you. How much has that inspired you to push for this kind of change for the next generation of women and girls in tennis?
It's incredible to have a role model like her, and I do feel that our responsibility as athletes at the moment, whether it's a woman, a man, I think it's our responsibility to really bring that equality more and more. And yeah, it's definitely been an amazing ride with the Purple Chair campaign. Women's tennis is going from strength to strength, especially in Canada, and we broke an attendance record actually for the women's tournament at the NBO this year. And then with the 12-day format in 2025, we're hoping to have more fans watching live tennis than ever before. And I do feel very supported as a female athlete in Canada, so I'm very grateful to be a part of an amazing group of women.
Yeah, and it's such an exciting time for women's sports as well, right? No secret that women's sports are breaking records. People want to watch women on the court. How did you get involved in this campaign, and how does the timing align with the message?
For me, I've always wanted to give back in any way that I can, and standing up for women's and girls' rights has always been something very important for me. So being a part of a campaign like this, embracing the color purple, it's the symbol of equity, as it's a color that has been associated with women's movements throughout the years. So yeah, being a part of something like this is incredible. And they also painted the chair purple this year. I'm sure it got a lot of good reviews because it really helps us stand up for something, even if it's just coloring the chair purple. It does something very, very big for equality, and I'm very grateful for that.
Hey, and Bianca, you couldn't be here live in studio because you're in California. You're preparing for the Asian Swing. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's been a tough, let's say, summer for me, but I am being very hopeful for the Asian Swing. It's the last tournament season, let's say, so I'm going all out, and yeah, hopefully I'll be in studio soon after that, holding up a trophy. I'm ready. I'm finally ready.
And also, Bianca, speaking of holding up the trophy, what is it going to be like when you're holding up a check that's the same amount as your male counterparts?
Yeah, for me, at the end of the day, we're all the same, whether it's gender, whether it's your skin color, where you're from. So having that opportunity and, being in the flesh, being able to be in that generation, it's incredible. So all I can say is, yeah, I'm sure I'm not only speaking for myself, but all women in this sport and every other sport. There's been so many amazing things happening in hockey and in basketball. And I think there's going to be a basketball team in Toronto next year. Is that true? For for the women, right? Yeah,
it is an exciting
we're really
time.
going places, so.
Yeah.
Yes, it really is.
And I just want to ask you really quickly, Bianca, what is it like to be a woman in sports right now, to witness? I mean, you just talked about women's basketball, to kind of see this happening right before your eyes.
Yeah, like I said, it's an incredible generation to be a part of right now.
Yeah.
And to be able to say that maybe I'm contributing, even if it's just a little bit, like doing campaigns like this or giving interviews like this. I mean, to me, it means the world. Whatever I can do to give back and help.
Tennis icon Bianca Andreescu on that note. Thanks so much.